Good day, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope, and thank you for allowing us to come into your listening and viewing environment. We are here with you from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, broadcasting live from the FijiWater.com sponsored studio to discuss whatever topics you might like to discuss, whatever issues of life you find challenging or that you find difficult to navigate. You can discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families. You can discuss dating and relationships. Whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind, God is concerned about that which concerns you. And that is the reason that we are here with you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, which is brought to you daily by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock, where the water collects in a natural, sustainable artesian aquifer, where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the blue cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you will save money at FijiWater.com. This is not just ordinary water. This is Earth's finest water at FijiWater.com. And for those of you who continue giving on the contribution pages of our websites at New Life Ministries International.com and New Life International CDC.com, and those of you that are using the link provided on Facebook or YouTube, and those of you that are now using Zelle on the T-Mobile caller text line to support the broadcast at 267-992-1424. We thank all of you for your support and for your commitment to the broadcast as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here for you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. And when we are not here with you throughout the day, we want you to stay connected with us through our internet radio station, WKAPfaith.com, where we play music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, music that will encourage you, empower you, and inspire you to become the best version of ourselves that we can possibly become by filling our spirit with something worthwhile on our internet radio station, WKAPfaith.com. And I want to remind all of our listeners and viewers, you can tune in on Sundays at New Life Christian Center, 400 Hillcrest Avenue, Wilmington, Delaware, 19809. If you're in our area, of course, we want you to come worship with us, come and experience a better quality of life. If you're not in our area, you can tune in on our additional YouTube channel at New Life Christian Center Pastor Pope. Sunday service begins in our worship center at 10 a.m. But we go live with the Sunday sermon on YouTube in our virtual sanctuary at 10:45 a.m. I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you want so much more out of life, you said. However, you say you're not certain how to accomplish more. You know, I often hear from people who are trying to get more out of life. And the first thing you've got to figure out is, what do you want to accomplish? And there are questions you have to ask yourself. If there's something you want to accomplish, you have to say, why do I want to accomplish that? You know, you hear people say, oh, I've got a bucket list. The question is, why do you feel the necessity to do those things? What is it that you want to accomplish, both personally and professionally? You know, it can be something simple, or for some people, when I say bucket list, it can be something simple, or it can be a list of things people want to do. And the question you have to ask yourself is, why do you want to do them? If it's not important, if it's not going to glorify God, it's really not necessary. You know, but you may want to, there may be certain things you want to accomplish regarding your personal health. That's okay. There may be something you want to accomplish regarding your academic achievements, that's okay. Because that's not bucket list. That's a life. That's creating a great quality of life. So you always have to ask yourself, and this is for all of our listeners and viewers, you always have to ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish personally? What do I want to accomplish professionally? You have to make those go hand in hand. They have to be synonymous. What do I want to accomplish personally, and what do I want to accomplish professionally? That's going to help you to achieve what we like to term as work-life harmony. There's no such thing as work-life balance. It's just not going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is because you're going to spend more time working than you do anything else other than sleeping, hopefully. Well, you're actually going to work more than you sleep. And I'll remind everyone, I've often said this in many settings. There's a 10-hour workday. Most cases, you're not going to get an opportunity to sleep 10 hours a day. There's a 10-hour business day minimum because there's 5 major categories to business: administration, development, management, marketing, operations. So you've got 5 segments of business, and you need to allocate 2 hours to each of those segments daily. So 5 times 2, we'll do the math, is 10. So you're going to spend 10 hours a day just working. Hopefully you're getting at least 8 hours of sleep. So you're working more than you sleep. And because that totals 18 hours of the day, you have 6 hours of additional time, which part of that may be for commuting. The other part of it is spending time with family. It maybe doing some of the things you enjoy doing, like working out or whatever the case may be. But the reality is you're going to work more than you do anything else. But what you're seeking is work-life harmony. There's so many things society teaches us that has us so messed up that we don't even know we're messed up. And what I mean by that is that was one of the tricks of the enemy when they said, oh, you've got to find work-life balance, because people spend their lives chasing a work-life balance. There is no such thing. Work is always going to require more of you than your personal life. So the reality is all you have to do is find work-life harmony. How can I get into a place of peace doing what I have to do professionally to make certain that my personal life is whole? So you really want to identify what it is you want to accomplish personally, and then what do you want to accomplish professionally. And then you have to work to that end. So in order to do that, and I talked about this in Sunday's sermon, you have to write the vision and make it plain. You have to write out what you want to accomplish. What do you want to accomplish personally? And I encourage everyone to do this. You can create 3 bullet points for each quarter of the year. Just like there's 4 seasons. No matter where you live, there's 4 seasons. Seasons, they may not look like ours right now with snow on the ground, but there's 4 seasons. The weather's going to change during those 4 seasons. There's 4 quarters in every year. God is a God of order. Everything God does, he does with order, because God is not the author of confusion. So if you're not writing your vision, you're going to be confused. What is it that I'm living for to accomplish? And that kind of takes people into finding their purpose. But the reality is that you want to make certain that you have a clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish. So I recommend that you write 3 bullet points for each quarter, what you want to accomplish. Now, are there carryovers? Sometimes there are. You may not accomplish everything you want to accomplish in each quarter, but at least you have a plan to work. So 3 bullet points. Now, for some people, if your vision's really big, you might have 3 bullet points for the year, but there are some things that you can outline related to those bullet points throughout the year, because you've got to have something to work. You can't just say at the end of the year, let me give you an example. I want to save this much money. You can't say that. Because if you do and you don't break it down on what will it take you to get to that point at the end of the year, for example, there's 52 weeks in a year. What am I going to do? There's 12 months in a year. What am I going to do each month? What am I going to set aside each month to get to that point at the end of the year? That should be the goal. So you have to set bullet points. You have to say, I'm not going to spend money on things that are not significantly going to help me accomplish my goal. So there are little ways, little steps to take getting there. I used an example in a sermon long ago, and I said to people, if you find that the price, I'll use a real simple example. Let's say the price of gas dropped this year from last year. Well, whatever, if you budget and you track, you know how much gas has dropped. And then whatever the difference is per gallon, put that aside every week. And then in addition to that, if you're like us, which we know that we get 20 cents off a gallon on Tuesdays, we get 5 cents off a gallon on Thursdays. Put that money aside. 20 cents times the number of gallons that you. That's one way of just disciplining yourself to save money. So in addition to that, set a certain amount. I'm going to save this much money every month for the next 12 months. And then you'll know exactly how much you're going to save by the end of the year. So you want to really set goals. You want to write the vision, make it plain, set the goals, but you have to have steps to follow it. You have to have steps to get to the goal. What do you want to accomplish professionally? So you got to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to reduce or eliminate the mistakes that I've been making. I'm going to give 100% focus every day. I'm going to take lunch breaks, and that's the only break I'm going to take during the day. I may take a mental health break for 15 minutes during the course of the day, but I'm only going to take my lunch break and I'm going to focus all my attention on work because this is what I want to accomplish by the end of the year. I want to achieve my bonus. I want a promotion, whatever it might be. But you've got to make certain that you are creating, by doing whatever goals you set, they will allow you to achieve work-life harmony. That's the only goal. It's not work-life balance, because there is no balance. It's just work-life harmony. I'm at peace with where I am at the end of the year. That's what your goal is. So how do you, and I'll give you an example of that. So there's 4 quarters in the year. There's 3 types of peace. Okay? There is peace. That means you're not at turmoil. So if you notice 12 months, and even though I say quarterly, break it out in 4 months each. There's peace, there's peace that surpasses all understanding. And by the end of the year, you want to be in perfect peace. So you have to work on that. You have to work on the cognitive of that. What is my mind doing that is keeping me out of peace that surpasses all understanding, even though I find peace? Now, you might even try spending the first quarter of the year developing your peace. Then the second quarter, you have peace. The third quarter, you have peace that surpasses all understanding. By the end of the year, you're in perfect peace. And if life happens when you start off the next year, start all over again. This is what we do to make certain that we have work-life harmony. We've got to do a better job of really getting into a place where we know exactly what we want to accomplish, and then we work to accomplish that. But you got to write the vision. You got to make it plain that he that reads it may run to it. You might be able to work your plan. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. If you are not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will move you into our queue. so that you may become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill, and if you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill. At T-Mobile, America's largest and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers. However, before I do that, I'm going to remind all of our listeners and viewers that this segment of the broadcast is brought to you by Charles Tyrwhitt, located in London, the UK. They also have stores in New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and at the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So if you're in any of those areas, stop in at their retail stores. They have everything a man could possibly need. And if you're not in any of those areas, you can order from Charles Tyrwhitt at ctshirts.com. They will ship and deliver right to your front door. And The White Company, located in London, the UK. They also have a store on Fifth Avenue in New York. So if you're in New York, stop in at the retail store. They have everything you could possibly need. Home goods, clothing for men, women, and children. And if you're not in New York, you can order from The White Company at thewhitecompany.com. They too will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your husband says you are stressing him out by your constant complaining. Okay. You said, however, you disagree. And you had a conversation with your mother regarding this, and your mother says that it will eventually damage your marriage. So you've got to make an effort to stop complaining. But you feel that you're not complaining, and so consequently, let me just say this, if you don't believe you're complaining, then you're not going to make a change. But if your husband's telling you that you're stressing him out with your complaints, even if it's just his perception, it's his reality. So if you look, stress is a killer. And unless you want to bury your husband, you are going to have to examine what you're doing and how you're complaining. And if your mother's telling you, if you had a conversation with your mother and your own mother is telling you that it will damage your marriage, what she's really saying to you is she has observed that that's what you do with your husband. She may not want to tell you that you're complaining, but she's telling you you're complaining. She's telling you by telling you that it's going to eventually damage your marriage. It's going to be destructive to your marriage. And the reason is because, look, the Bible, first of all, tells us it's better for a man to dwell on the rooftop than to live in a house with a contentious woman. That's the Bible says that. You know, this handbook of living are basic instructions before leaving earth. It's telling us that. Men and women are wired different. What you don't believe is complaining, his perception is you're complaining, and if his perception is you're complaining, it's even, if he's telling you it's stressing him out, it's even deeper than you just complaining. And that's what you've got to examine. Your mother just didn't want to tell you that, but she did tell you that it will damage your marriage. So you've got to take a look at how you're stressing him out. So let's just, for the sake of examining this, let's say that you really aren't complaining, but you're constantly verbalizing what you feel. That's stressing him out. Even if you don't look at it as complaining, if he's telling you, he may not be able to articulate it to you in a different way, but he's telling you you're stressing him out. So whatever you're doing is stressing him out. However you want to label it, is stressing him out. And stress is a killer. So unless you want to bury him, you may want to examine it. Now, in your communication, you said, well, you talked to your mother about it, and your mother said, well, why don't you stop complaining? Well, that's a good idea, but if you don't see that as complaining, what she's saying to you really isn't making any difference. And what she's really telling you is you've got to make change. But see, the problem is that has been a habit you've developed. It's a habit that has been formed, and until you change habits, it's not going to allow you the opportunity to improve your quality of life. Because really, this is what it's all about. It's really all about quality of life. And when we spend all our time stressing and complaining and at odds with one another, you're really disrupting or damaging the quality of life. Your mother said it will damage your marriage, but it will damage your quality of life. If it damages your marriage, it will damage your quality of life. If it's causing unnecessary stress, you are disrupting the quality of life. And for all of our listeners and viewers, I remember once in our church, one of the things I said to everyone is, get a box, and every time either of you complain about something, put $1 in the box. And at the end of the year, see how much money's in the box. If you got $52 in the box, that means 52 times this year you all have been complaining. And what we don't realize is the reason it disrupts the quality of life is because let's think about the children of Israel. They got in trouble with God for murmuring and complaining, but yet we murmur and complain. You don't want to be in trouble with God. Because let me tell you what happens. And this is why I say it disrupts the quality of life. The children of Israel spent 40 years in the wilderness trying to get to the promised land, which should have taken them no time to make that journey. Literally days they could have made that journey. They end up making the journey in 40 years, and the people who were in the desert complaining died off before they ever got into the promised land. Do we want to miss getting into our promised land because all we're doing is murmuring and complaining? We don't want to do that. We want to know that God has made a promise for our lives, and if we just keep working, good things will happen, and we'll get to the place that God has appointed for us. But no, we want to spend time murmuring and complaining about everything. And that's why it takes us longer to get to the place that God has purposed and promised for our lives. Remember, the promised land. Every life has a promised land. Now, it was a whole nation of Israel, the children of Israel. And the Bible says they're in the wilderness, murmuring and complaining. And God delayed the promise until those who murmured and complained died off. Come on, we got to do better than this. We got to realize the importance of just being content where we are on the journey and keep making the journey until we get to the promised land. And it'll take a whole lot longer. I preached a sermon many, many years ago when my son was in college. There is a way to accelerate your destiny. There's a way to get to the promises that God has made to you. And the way to get there is without murmuring and complaining, because all we're doing is resisting what God is doing in our lives. All we're doing is resisting what God has already done in our lives. He's already predestined what he wants for each of us. But the more we focus on being content where God has us and where God is taking us and how he is taking us, the more God says, okay, you're ready for another promise. Here's another promise I've given you. And we have to understand that reality, our perception becomes reality. So if that's your husband's perception, it is his reality. His perception is that your complaining is stressing him out. His reality is now that he's stressed. And stress is a killer. So we have to be more conscious of what we're doing at all times. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by PorscheAmerica.com. So if you are in the market for a high-performance automobile, one of the finest high-performance automobiles ever manufactured, go to PorscheAmerica.com, where you will have the opportunity to virtually build out the Porsche you desire to own. And if you're in our area, go to PorscheDelaware.com. Ask to speak to Mike Didio, who's the general manager at PorscheDelaware.com. He will have someone assist you in selecting the Porsche you desire to own. And if you are currently an owner of a Porsche and you are just in need of service, go to PorscheDelaware.com. Ask to speak to Mike Adams, who is the service manager at PorscheDelaware.com. He will have someone assist you in scheduling an appointment, and they will pick up your vehicle at your home or office, provide you with the loaner car, and return your vehicle to you when your service has been completed at PorscheDelaware.com. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated your husband says, okay, so here we are. You said your husband says whatever comes to his mind without regard for the feelings of others. Okay, that's a problem, first of all. Let me pause there to say that. You said this puts you in a difficult position being around other people. Here's the problem. So your husband has no filter. You're always concerned about what is going to come out of his mouth because he just says whatever comes to his mind. The problem is your husband lacks discipline. So here's the reality. When someone doesn't have a relationship with the Lord, they're not a disciple of the Lord. And if they're not a disciple of the Lord, they have no discipline. So you can't expect your husband, whom you've decided to live out a life in holy matrimony, you can't expect him to have a filter or to have discipline when he has no relationship with the Lord. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and you should remind him of this, sometimes it's better to be silent and thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. In addition to that, when you have a relationship with the Lord, you understand that whatever you're going to say, now you said he's offensive to people. When you have a relationship with the Lord, you understand that whatever you say, whatever you open your mouth and speak, before it ever gets to the ear of the hearer, it has to be heard by God first. God's going to hear it before someone else hears it because he knows our thoughts. And because when we open our mouth, he already knows what's going to come out. So now the problem is, because your husband is not in a relationship with the Lord, he doesn't think about, is it going to be acceptable to God? He only decides what's acceptable to him. And that's one of the reasons we have to be aware of who we marry. But you're not going to, I'm not suggesting to you that you need to end your marriage because your husband has no discipline. What I am suggesting to you is that you continue to have conversations with him and you share with him how he's offending other people, which makes it very difficult for you to be around other people not knowing what he's going to say next. Because that too will disrupt the quality of your life. You can't take him to work events because he's going to say something that's offensive. You have to choose the people you can be around because he's going to say something offensive. So that adds a lot of different, a lot of different dynamics to your life. So you need to just communicate with him on a continuous basis about this. I'm not suggesting that you nag. I'm not suggesting that you complain. What I am suggesting is that you communicate your concerns about how he interacts with others. And the way that you can do that is by encouraging him to develop a relationship with the Lord. Today's Daily Divine Direction 3D has been brought to you by Fiji Water. A taste of paradise will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you will save money at